the Lord gifts me something. He gives me something special. And it's just, I don't know why he does this sort of stuff with me, but he does. He kind of messes with me a little bit. I don't know if he messes with you. He always does it in love, but he gives me something. He points out something out of the hundreds of thousands of articles in the yard sale. He always points out one thing for me. And he said, this is going to be important, Danforth. I go, okay, whatever, and then he gradually reveals it to me. And so I'm going to share that with you this morning. This is the thing that he pointed out to me. This is, if you can see him, it's a little puffer fish. A little puffer fish. These little guys, they blow up, get really big. You can get, I think can you get freshwater ones? Saltwater ones? Anyway. But these guys blow up, and they're all prickly on the edges. And that's one of their defenses, right? That they can blow up, and they're all prickly, and nobody wants to eat them because you get a sore throat. Well, as the Lord pointed this out to me, he said, I want you to talk about how to deal with prickly people. Because we all have prickly people in our lives, right? Sometimes you are one of them. And we're all prickly at one time or another. But I want to talk about in the next few Sundays, talking about dealing with prickly people. And some of this is going to relate to the cross that we've been talking about, the cross of Jesus Christ, and the implications of that cross for us in daily life. But how to deal with prickly people. Think about the prickly people in your life. They may be a relative, might be a spouse, might be a kid, grandkid, a pastor, whoever. Somebody in your life brings a little irritation into your life, little pointiness, little kind of just, you don't want to be around them necessarily. You don't invite them to dinner, or, you just try to avoid them, generally speaking. But I think Jesus has a different way. But I'd like to ask you the question this morning, how do you deal, personally, how do you deal with prickly people? How do you deal with prickly people? What's your response?
Not too well sometimes.
Not too well, okay. How else do you deal with prickly people? What do you do? Avoid them, okay. Well, I'm going to show you a little clip of how one 6-year-old dealt with some prickly people in her life who happened to be her parents. Her parents were warring. They were being prickly towards each other. And this is how one 6-year-old dealt with that. Make sure we can hear Eldon. Thank you.
Mom, are you ready to be his friend?
Yes.
Try not to be that high up to be friends. I want everything to be low, okay?
Okay.
Just try your best. I don't want you and my dad to be replaced and meanies again. I want you and my dad to be placed as settled and be friends. I'm not trying to be mean. I just want everyone to be friends. And if I can be nice, I think all of us can be nice too. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm trying to do my best in my heart. Nothing else than that. I want you, Mom, my dad, everyone to be friends. I want everyone to be smiling, not like being mad. I want everything to smile. Especially when I see someone, I want them to smile. Especially Nana, everyone. I want everyone to smile. And if that's for my dad and you, Mom, I think you can do it. I think you can settle your mean heights down a little to short height. Then it's both, okay? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be a bully. I'm trying to be steady on the floor, not way down, on straight, on the middle where my heart is. My heart is something. Everyone else's heart is something too. And if we live in a world where everyone's being mean, everyone's going to be a monster in their future. What if bitter persons and we will eat them, then no one will ever be here. Only the monsters in our place. We need everyone to be a person. Everyone, including me and my mom, everyone. I just want everything to be settled down. Nothing else. I just want everything to be good as possible. Nothing else.
Thank you, Tiana. Come give mommy chụp chụp. I love you.
I love you too.
You can shut it off now. Anybody who tells you that little kids don't know what's going on? Jesus knew that little kids knew what was going on, right? It's often a little child that can lead us into a better place, quite unexpectedly. Dealing with prickly people. What does that mean? To deal with prickly people. Jesus had a way of dealing with prickly people too. And you've got some Bibles, or your own Bible. If you're using the black Bibles here, it's on page 5 of the New Testament. Page 5, the page numbers start all over there in the New Testament. Page 5, Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. We're looking at the end of Jesus' famous discourse, the Sermon on the Mount, probably his most famous sermon. And in that sermon, he says outrageous things. He says things like, well, love your enemies and things like that. Well, we're not going to talk so much about that directly, but we're going to look at the first few verses of chapter 7 and how that will help us in dealing with prickly people. Jesus said, "Do not judge so that you will not be judged. For in the way you judge, you will be judged. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' and behold, the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." Jesus says a couple of really important things here. He says, number one, he says, the way that you deal with people in life, the attitude that you have and that you give out towards people, that you project out towards people, whether it's positive or negative, no matter what you expect of life, what you put out of life, what you frame life with, will determine what you receive back from life. What you give out, the attitude that you have, that will come back to you. It's the law of sowing and reaping that Paul talks about in Galatians. It's about an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth that Hammurabi and later quoted in the Old Testament. What that is all about, what you give out comes back to you. It's kind of a boomerang effect. You know, you throw your boomerang out, whether it's a happy, sad, whatever kind of boomerang, and it comes and hits you in the back of the head. And that can be a good hit or a bad hit. But things come back to you in life. And you may not think, even things done in secret, attitudes held in secret, come back to either bite you or bless you. So Jesus isn't saying anything terribly outrageous here. It's something that other philosophers and other religions have said all along. But then he launches into, he says, why do you try to pick a little speck, a little splinter out of your brother or sister's eye, when you've got this huge beam, this giant beam in your eye? I mean, there's supposed to be a little bit of humor in this, you know. Think about this big beam sticking out of your eye, you know. Oh, that's pretty funny, Jesus. You know, but that's the way that we are. We've got these big beams in our eyes. And Jesus says, first pick the beam out of your own eye. Then you'll see clearly to pick the little tiny speck out of your brother's eye. Notice that he doesn't just say any stranger. He doesn't say, oh, out of this person's eye or whatever. This is your brother. This is your sister. Doesn't matter who it is. And they've got something in their eye and they're not able to see straight, and maybe that's affecting their actions and how they perceive life. Maybe you like this person, maybe you don't. But Jesus says this is our brother, or this is our sister. We're connected to them. And to act out a proper connection to them, we've got to first deal with our own vision or lack of vision. Confucius, 500 years before, is known for saying, who knows whether these are authentic sayings, maybe somebody cooked it up in the 50s or something, but they say Confucius said, if you see a good man, imitate him. If you see an evil man, look within. Interesting. And Jesus is saying to us, he's saying, when somebody irritates you, when somebody gets a little prickly with you, the first thing to do is not to haul off and try to correct them and try to make them different, to change them. But the first thing to do is to listen, and not just with your ears, but listen with your heart, like that little girl. Listen deeply. To listen deeply. Now, this is something that takes a lot of practice. It's learning to listen to the subtleties, the little hints and nuances of life, and particularly what's going on inside of us when we are feeling pricked by prickly people. What's going on in terms of our emotions? How are we reacting? Are we trying to control that person? Are we trying to change that person? Because, by golly, I want to be comfortable. I don't want some irritation in my life, because irritation's bad, right? Comfort is good. And pretty soon we find that we're at the altar of the God of comfort. And our contemporary culture worships the God of comfort. And we all buy into that. I mean, I do too. We buy into that if we're really honest about that. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. But there is a discomfort that leads to redemption. There is a discomfort that leads to a change of mind, which the Bible calls repentance. A change of mind. To change our mind, to change our vision about how we see things. And that's looking back at the cross that we were talking about in previous weeks, that the cross of Christ changes our mind about who God is, how to live life, what it means to be successful in life, what it means to be able to have a proper relationship with people that I love or people that I don't love, strangers or friends, family. And the cross gives us a new perspective if we're open to it. Just like Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Read Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7 sometime. And if you don't feel a little bit uncomfortable after reading those 3 chapters, read them again, because you haven't really taken in what Jesus is saying. He's calling for a whole new way of living. That's what the cross does for us. A whole new way to look at life, look at people, look at ourselves, look at God. That everything gets changed. Paul was adamant about this. And so is Jesus. And Jesus is constantly stretching his disciples, stretching people to help them to see a whole world, a whole way of living that they would never see on their own. A whole new vision of God. A whole new way to view life. Jesus says that we can see clearly once we take that log out of our own eye, but it takes some allowing the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, to point out things in our lives. And oftentimes, we'll center in on things that we think, these are bad, I shouldn't be doing these, and we hyperventilate about all these habits and things that we have. And yeah, maybe we need to change them, but maybe, just maybe, God is pointing us in a whole different direction. And he says, well, I'm more concerned with this area over here. And you go, what? I'm sorry, bad connection. I don't hear you very well. And God says, no, I want you to kind of work with this area over here. And God totally catches us by surprise. And we go, I thought I was okay in that area. I thought I had that cinched up. And God says, well, let's work with that a little bit. And that's taking that log slowly. Sometimes it's piece by piece. You have to cut it up, take it off piece by piece. But it allows you to see clearly. The interesting thing, that the Greek word is a specific Greek word. It means to be able to see through something. To see through something. And usually our Bible translations don't catch that. It's being able to see through the haze, the mist, maybe the masks and some of the stuff that people throw up, all of us throw up, to kind of protect ourselves, this kind of identity we throw out there. I'm okay, I'm happy, I'm doing well. And God's Holy Spirit allows you to see through. Once you take that log out, that ego log, that thing that says, I want to be comfortable, that's number one. That's what the ego log says. God's Spirit says, when you give yourself to somebody else, when you do the work of taking out that log, that's a sacrifice that will pay off for you. And that you will be able to truly help the other person, not for your own sake, but for the sake of God. And we're no longer praying to change people into our image. We're working hard to change people, starting with ourselves, into the image of God as a gift. And the Spirit is doing that through us as we begin to follow what's going on. Catching the subtle hints and taking that log, being able to see through all of the stuff, all the white noise, all of the distractions, seeing through clearly to see what's truly going on and what you think is the little speck that needs to go may not be it at all. But it's learning to listen deeply to what the Spirit is saying about any particular person. That prickly person in your life is there for a purpose. And that purpose is to help you become more Christ-like in all that you do. They're there for a purpose. And when you can get to the point where you can say about the prickly people, saying, thank you, Lord, for prickly person number 17. I really appreciate that. Then you'll be on a spiritual level. You'll be preaching, okay, on a Sunday morning. Because that's a breakthrough. When you can see the things that make you uncomfortable in life, and you can see God's love, his loving hand in that, helping you become more and more like Jesus, it is a matter of thanks. It's a praise to him. Paul felt, in a similar way, Paul felt about prickly people. They were an opportunity also. Take a look at Romans chapter 2 on page 119. Page 119 in the Black Bibles. Look at the first few verses of Romans chapter 2. Now, Paul has just gotten done kind of painting a picture of people who are pretty far from God. Romans chapter 1. You can read about that. They're idolaters. They're all about themselves. Nobody else exists. They're all about themselves. And he's painting this picture, and he talks about, well, in the last part of Romans chapter 1, they're filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, murder, and all this. And just as we're wiping our brows, slanderers, haters of God, thank God I'm not like that. And then it goes to verse 31, without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful. And although they know the ordinance of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but they also give hearty approval to those who practice them. They're all in that together. And we're going, thank God I'm not like them. Thank you, Lord Jesus. I'm not like them. And then Paul goes, therefore you have no excuse. You have no excuse. Every one of you who passes judgment, for in that which you judge another, you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice the same things. And all of a sudden the words of Jesus begin to echo back to us. The measure that you measure out to others will come back to you, will be measured back to you. And if we practice judgment and controlling other people's lives and trying to change them and make them different, that same judgment, that same harshness will come back to us. It's the same thing, people who live by rules and rules alone. No mercy, unloving, just rules. You follow the rules, you break the rules, boom, boom, boom. It's clear cut. We live by the rules. And if you want to live by the rules, guess what? You will die by the rules. Without mercy, without justice, or, well, that's another conversation. Without grace. Without grace. Because there are two ways to live. You can live by the rules and try to be an ethical person, which is fine. I mean, that's not a bad thing. But if that's all there is, it's living within a hollow shell of an existence. Or you could even say a prison cell. You can be ethical within a dark and lonely place. Or you can live by grace, which takes the law and all the rules, but sees those rules from the vantage point of mercy and love and humility, the willingness to take the log out of our own eye. It's a whole different viewpoint. And so Paul builds on what Jesus says and says, well, if you're judging others, you get to be judged too. It's just that's the way that life works. If that's the system you want to live under. And we know that the judgment of God rightly falls on those who practice such things. But do you suppose this, O man, when you pass judgment on those who practice such things and do the same yourself, that you will escape the judgment of God? Or do you think lightly of the riches of his kindness and tolerance and patience, not knowing that the kindness of God leads you to what? Repentance, to a total change of mind. That the kindness of God is the power that leads you to a change of mind. And so thinking deeply, listening deeply to what God is doing with any prickly person or God is doing with you, what's really going on in a situation? What is the Holy Spirit doing? Because God works with everybody at every moment, every time that you meet somebody, God is working. There is no place that you can go, no place in life, no situation that you can be in where God isn't working. And he's doing something good. The Holy Spirit is doing something good, and it always involves transformation. It always involves change. Always, always, always. And sometimes it's little by little, tiny little increments, millimeter by millimeter. Or sometimes it's a huge change where you're feeling projected out into someplace like Jesus into the wilderness, or something big goes on in your life and you go, whoa, big change, and you're kind of recovering from that and learning what that's all about. But whether the change is big or little, every person, every encounter in your life, every prickly person, every wonderful person who you love to be with, every party person, every prickly person is there for a purpose. But you can't see the purpose unless you've really surrendered to the one who is forming your life, who is shaping your life, who wants you to be more loving, more giving, and believe it or not, happier in this life. To experience what life is at its core, at its very core. And so hopefully we're looking at a different way of seeing prickly people in our lives. That prickly people bring us to the cross of Jesus Christ, where we are face to face with the reality of our own kind of ego stuff going on inside. Stuff that we love to cover up, frost it over with something sweet, but it's still our own ego and our own self-centeredness. And to be real honest about that. That God's not going to beat us up He's not going to beat us over the head with it. He's going to bring us with his kindness and even his sense of humor. But with his crystal clear truth, he will bring us face to face. Just like in the 23rd Psalm, he sits me down with my enemies. And oftentimes those enemies are the ones within our own hearts. And God sits us down. We go, I don't want to eat with that person. That person's you. That's all the ugliness inside. Well, I don't want to eat with that person. No, God sits us down and he serves us with a towel over his arm and teaches us what life is really about. If we listen deeply. If we listen deeply. And so, as we begin kind of this journey through prickly territory, to begin to see life just a little bit different, particularly the prickly people in our lives, and to begin to say, well, okay, Jesus, if you've got a hand in this, what are you up to? What are you doing? To begin reading our Bibles a little bit more consciously, you might say, to listen deeply to the way that God deals with prickly people. And to begin to say, okay, make a decision. In fact, what you can do very practically, you can use the taffy method. The taffy method. And you know how saltwater taffy, have you ever seen a taffy puller? Seen those things? Seen the machines, or sometimes people will pull the saltwater taffy, and stretch it out and then wrap it around, stretch it out, wrap it around, stretch it out. And that's what God's doing with us each and every day. He's like pulling taffy, pulling us. We go, whoa, no, this is going to make you better. Okay, whoa, another round. And we think we've learned that lesson. Whoa, here comes another taffy pull. But using the taffy method, it's TAF. TAF. The first step towards changing our attitudes towards others, is with your thought life. Is to say, okay, first of all, I'm not thinking good thoughts, and I'm getting acid in my stomach, and I'm getting headaches, and life isn't going well because of these negative thoughts I have towards my prickly people. And so you change your thought life. You begin to change. You say, well, I guess I want to have a more Jesus-like attitude towards these people, and I'd like a little less stress in my life too. And Jesus says, boom, we'll do that. We'll work with that. So you start with your thought life, the way that you think about people, and you say, okay, I'm going to bless people instead of criticizing or judging them. I will bless them. Whether I agree with what they're doing or not, I will bless them and see where that takes me, and watch where the Holy Spirit teaches me in some of these things. And you'll find that you're actually listening deeply, not only to your own heart, but to the heart of the other person. You may discover things about your particular prickly person that you didn't know before. That God will reveal them to you either supernaturally, or you will begin to hear things. Wow, I didn't hear that anger. I didn't hear that hurt inside their life. Oh, I didn't hear those different kinds of broken places. Oh, I didn't hear. And you begin to hear what's going on with this other person. And then Jesus will have the audacity to say, well, I'm going to use you to heal that person. How about that? And you go, no, Lord, don't pick me. Pick somebody else. No, I choose you. And God will use you in some marvelous ways that will astound you and amaze you if you're willing to listen deeply. But it starts with your thoughts. To say, hey, I'm going to change my thought life. Help me with that, Lord. And the Holy Spirit will help you if you listen deeply. The second one is the A is action. Is if you change your thought life, the change doesn't really take place until you actually act differently. And we're holding feelings off, that's the F part, the feelings till the end, because feelings don't change very quickly. They really don't. I mean, you know that. But if you can make yourself do something, even if you're like this, your heart will change gradually, but change your thoughts and then make a decision and act differently. Talk to the person respectfully. I had somebody on my bus the other day, first week of school, and this one person said something and the other kid said, "Shut up." And I said, "Well, we can talk to each other a little nicer than that." And this one person said, "Well, I hate that person." I said, "Well, even if you do hate that person, you can still talk to that person respectfully." All these life lessons going on the bus, right? Trying to drive deer going across my path. Good grief. But I said, and person said, "No, I can't do that." Yes, you can. You can do that. You can talk respectfully, even if your heart is like, "I want to kill him." So, but once you start to do that and begin to practice thoughts and actions that are motivated by the cross of Jesus Christ, eventually, and we're all different, but eventually, if you practice this, your heart, your feelings will change. I guarantee it. Now, some of us have to practice longer than others. That's fine. We're on that road. But thoughts, actions, feelings. Feelings are last. They will follow. We want to change our feelings right away. Doesn't happen. Change your thoughts and your actions, how you speak to somebody, how you address them. And instead of acting reactively, you begin to act proactively. And you begin to see these people in a whole new way. You begin to see yourself in a whole new way. And guess what? You even see Jesus in a whole new way. As the real Jesus Christ, who brings you to his cross, who resurrects your life as a new creation and sets you free, no longer in bondage to the prickly people. Let's pray. I'd like you to think about just being real practical.